I be vulnerable with you? Hey, my name is Carson Williams. I'm a junior at Lakeside High School. I'm 16 years old.
Hey, my name is Chase Corey. I currently work at Warren Baptist in Grovetown, and I'm a student at Augusta University.
I'm Kaylee, and I'm a college student. I am in the nursing program.
Hey, my name is Darren Newsom. I go to USC Aiken. I'm a senior studying marketing, and I'm a creative entrepreneur.
I'm Hannah. I work at Warren Baptist in kids ministry. I'm 21 years old, and I just got my associates in psychology.
A little bit about my story is growing up, being a little brother to someone who is super confident, always wanted to be like him. I thought showing weakness was a no-go. Always wanted to portray that I had everything figured out. I was a cool guy or popular, or had friends, and was, just doing my thing. Came to find out that that was very hurtful to me. Big transition happened in my family. We moved here to Augusta, and I figured out that if I ever wanted to have a real relationship with people, that I had to put that front down, and I had to be real with people. Yeah, when I think about vulnerability, I think about integrity that kind of go side by side.
It's showing someone the parts of you that you're scared to tell or show.
It's the things that I'm scared to tell people, or the things that I feel like I should be ashamed about.
My best friend since I was 2, he moved around the country with us as we moved, and for whatever reason, his family kind of split off pretty suddenly, and I just never saw him anymore. That happened the same time that the girl I was dating, she ghosted me. And so the two closest people to me in my life just both left. And I was struggling with mental health at the time, and so I just felt super hurt and isolated, and I was angry. And so I just pushed everyone away, and to continue to do that until God got me and He softened my heart.
The hardest part about being vulnerable is definitely how people might think of me.
It hurts your pride a little bit. It did for me, at least, because I would like everybody to know that I have it all put together and that I am strong.
When I'm putting up a facade, I'm trying to control how people will react to me and how they'll perceive me. And then when I'm vulnerable, they're just seeing me.
One thing that definitely has prevented me from being vulnerable in certain cases is I'm always scared someone's gonna make me feel bad for something that I'm going through.
The way that culture is being strong and looking strong is super important. You think about the best athletes, the ones that are most mentally tough. Those are the guys that make the headlines, not the ones who are real about their struggle.
When you actually have to tell someone I'm not okay, it becomes real to you as well. You're like, I'm actually not great. That can be scary.
Yeah, there is that different side of vulnerability that's in resolving conflict, because sometimes you can't fully resolve a situation unless you tell exactly how you're feeling and the other person does the same. That is also scary because you think that that's just going to cause more anger, and in my situation, it actually did not, because there's a lot of assumptions made when you're not vulnerable.
It's scary because it's letting people close. And it's scary to get people close to you because then they might hurt you.
Just in the same way that if I'm vulnerable, they can love me for who I am. If I'm vulnerable, then they can actually reject me for who I am and not for the facade that I'm putting up. And so it's scary because you're kind of lowering down your shields, and you can the medicine can come in or the arrows. It's kind of either one.
Something that I've noticed is the more I'm open about my struggles, the more people talk to me about theirs. And I think that's been a really good thing for me in helping other people through their struggles, because then they kind of already have a sense of trust with me even if they don't know me. It's difficult being vulnerable to people who don't really understand what you're talking about. I deal with a lot of mental health struggles, and when I was vulnerable with people in the past about it, if they weren't familiar with it or they didn't understand, it was kind of brushed aside a little bit. However, that being said, I think overall being vulnerable with people has been a very positive thing for me. It's been hard and it has sucked a lot of times, but by being vulnerable, I've been able to move forward in my recovery.
You can't do it on your own, and eventually you're gonna either give up or give out, because that's not what we're made for. We're made for a community and people knowing us as we are and us knowing them.
If you have a big thing of rocks and it's really hard to carry, you're not gonna go after that alone. You're gonna be like, hey, can you help me?
On my story, I spent a good 6 years of my life in high school just not being vulnerable to anyone at all. I had friends that knew me surface level, but I would get home and lock myself in my room and not do anything with any other people. And so When I think about vulnerability, I think of the healing that came when I finally was vulnerable with people. Because as long as there's a front that you're putting up with someone else, then they're only loving the front. They're not actually loving you as a person. So the only way to truly be loved by a person is for them to truly know you.
The best relationships that I have are built on being totally open and honest. I think that if you want to go further with the relationships, that vulnerability is a must.
Talking about things out loud is how we process things. So if you've had a traumatic experience, you need to be able to talk about it. Talking about it is being vulnerable. So everybody has something that they've been hurt by. To kind of move on from that hurt, you have to be vulnerable and you have to be willing to talk to people. So I think that's been kind of motivation for me, because I did not want to be vulnerable.
Throughout high school, I tried to be vulnerable and I got like my hand smacked. To someone else experiencing that, I know that sucks a lot and it's heartbreaking and you feel rejected and you don't want to go through it again, because why would you? Use wisdom in who you're being vulnerable to. Have faith in God. That's ultimately what got me to be vulnerable. It wasn't because I thought people would receive it well. I assumed that they would respond the same way that people would respond in my past, but they didn't. And ultimately what got me to be vulnerable, to be able to receive that, wasn't confidence that it would end well, but confidence in God that this is what he told me to do, so I'm going to do what he said.
My experience with vulnerability in the past was in elementary and middle school. I was very vulnerable. I told anybody basically anything. And then once I got to high school, I realized that everyone else was not, and I felt like I should not be sharing everything I was sharing. I thought they were judging me, didn't want to hear, didn't care. And it wasn't until senior year and afterwards that I started realizing that a lot of people do care, and it is important to be vulnerable.
In 1 Peter 5:7, it says to cast all your anxieties on God because he cares about you. That we're supposed to tell God our anxieties and our worries, because he does care about us, and he's not some distant God who just is watching things. Like, he's there with us going through everything. It might not say be vulnerable, but it does. It says cast your anxieties on God.
In order for us to experience God in other kinds of ways, we can best do that through other people. And so if I'm around Kaylee, then I can get her perspective of God in a way that I wouldn't be able to get from my life that he's given me. Other reason you need vulnerability is because life's brutally hard, and sometimes it is too much for you to do alone, and you're not going to make it if you don't have other people. So it's worth a shot at the very least.
When I think about vulnerability from a biblical perspective, I think about Jesus in the garden. He took his disciples with him, and he was praying and he was sweating blood before he was crucified. That's vulnerability.
In the Bible, where it says you're fully known and fully loved, it's almost comforting when you are vulnerable and open with people that love you. You're being known in a different way and in a deeper way.
The first major healing in my life came about when I put my faith in God, and then all of a sudden I was known and I was loved, actually. And he saw all of my crap and he loved me anyways. And the second milestone of healing happened when I was vulnerable for other people, and all of a sudden they saw all my crap and they loved me anyways.
In Psalm 62:8, he says, trust in him at all times, O people, pour out your heart to God. And he's saying that to them because it's a vital part of our relationship with him.